and gentlemen, welcome. This is King Majora with the King Majora Show exclusive. Damn, son, where'd you find this? Another one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be reading some articles. I want to make the case that the United States is way more advanced than you could possibly even comprehend, and nukes are obsolete. Going to be using what is typically defined as credible sources, universally speaking. At least credible enough. So, from Vice News, U.S. Navy has patents on tech it says will engineer the fabric of reality. The U.S. Navy has patents on weird and little understood technology. According to patents filed by the U.S. Navy, it is working on a compact fusion reactor that could power cities, an engine that works using inertial mass reduction, and a hybrid aerospace underwater craft. Dubbed the UFO patents, the war zone has reported that the Navy had to build prototypes of some of the outlandish tech to prove it worked. Dr. Salvatore Cesar Pais is the man behind the patents, and the war zone has proven the man exists, at least on paper. Pais has worked for a number of different departments in the Navy, including the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division, NAVAIR, NALCAD, and the Strategic Systems Programs, SSP. The SSP mission, according to its website, is to provide credible and affordable strategic solutions to the warfighter. It's responsible for developing the technology behind the Trident class nuclear missiles launched from submarines. The patents all build on each other, but at the core is something Pais called the Pais effect. This is the idea that controlled motion of electrically charged matter via accelerated vibration and or accelerated spin subjected to smooth yet rapid acceleration transients in order to generate extremely high energy, high intensity, and electromagnetic fields. Essentially, Vice, you know what? Fuck you, Vice. I swear to God. I gotta sit here and look at an ad? No, never mind. Essentially, Pais is claiming to use properly spun electromagnetic fields to contain a fusion reaction. That plasma fusion reaction he claims to have invented will revolutionize power consumption. Experts theorize that a functioning fusion reactor would lead to the cheap and ubiquitous energy. Oh my God, so many ads. One of Pais and the Navy's patents described what the propulsion system and fusion drive would be used for: a hybrid aerospace underwater craft. According to the patent, the craft could travel land, sea, and outer space at incredible speeds. Other patents invented by Pais and filled by the Navy include a high temperature superconductor, a electromagnetic field generator, and a high frequency gravitational wave generator. It all sounds like science fiction, and the Navy's been skeptical too. Navy authorities call bullshit on Pais' inventions, and his patents went through a lengthy internal review at NAVAIR. The war zone obtained emails about the bureaucratic fight between Pais and the Navy through a Freedom of Information Act request and revealed that the mad scientist won. According to the patent, some of the technology is operable. That means the Navy is claiming some of Pais' wild tech works and has been demonstrated to Navy officials. Physics of what Pais is claiming are beyond theoretical and beyond the ken of the layman or lowly science reporter. But a paper about his compaction fusion reactor was accepted by the peer-reviewed Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Transactions on Plasma Science and published in the November 2019 issue. The fact my work on the design of a compact fusion reactor was accepted for publication in such a prestigious journal as IEEE TPS should speak volumes as it to its importance and credibility, and should eliminate or at least alleviate all misconceptions you or any other person may have in regards to the veracity or possibility of my advanced physics concepts, Pais told the War Zone in an email. Pais continued to toot his own plasma horn. Do realize that my work culminates in the enablement of the Pais effect, original physical concept, he said. Such high energy electromagnetic radiation can locally interact with the vacuum energy state, VES, the VES being the fifth state of matter, fifth essence, quintessence. In other words, the fundamental structure, foundational framework from which everything else, space time included, in our quantum reality emerges. The engineering of the Pais effect can give rise to the enablement of microscopic quantum coherence, which, if you have closely been following my work, you understand the importance of. If the email Pais sent sounds like the jargon-filled ramblings of a mad scientist, you aren't alone. The Pais emails sound like the jargon-filled ramblings of a mad scientist. But the Pentagon does have the history of successfully fostering cutting-edge technology. More than 100 years ago, nuclear weapons were science fiction. GPS, the Tor network, and the internet itself all began as Pentagon programs. Perhaps the Navy will soon revolutionize the way we think about energy and transportation. Yeah, I'd have to agree because basically, back in the Wright brothers' days, the scientific academic standard and consensus was, including the military supporting this notion, that heavier than air flight was impossible. Well, it's not. And Einstein was also a fraud. It can go into 101 scientists against Einstein, the smear pieces in the media, claiming anti-Semite to anybody who disagreed. But I'm not going to do that in this little podcast. Just know that there's evidence that Einstein was a plagiarist fraud who set us back hundreds of years into the Dark Age and got famous on eclipse sciences already known. Futurism. The Navy reportedly experimented with a space-time modification weapon. From Futurism. Military documents claim the device could make the hydrogen bomb seem more like a firecracker. By Victor Tangerman. Space-time modification weapon. According to documents obtained by the War Zone, the U.S. Navy performed experiments on far-fetched, technologies, including a space-time modification weapon, which researchers claimed internally could revolutionize power and propulsion systems. The mysterious technologies were meant to take advantage of the Pais effect, patented by American aerospace engineer Salvatore Cesar Pais, which could end up pushing the boundaries of conventional science, if that is, they are ever proven to actually work. Okay, we went into this. This was just going into his whole story. According to the newly obtained documents, the Navy took Pais's ideas seriously enough to pour thousands of dollars into their development. I just don't want to repeat. The space-time modification weapon, based on Pais's patent for a plasma compression fusion device, is supposed to release extremely high energy levels and make the hydrogen bomb seem more like a firecracker in comparison, according to the documents. The experiments sound inconclusive, though. The elusive Pais effect was neither observed nor disproven, according to the War Zone. In other words, it remains unclear whether the Navy still believes Pais is onto something, or whether his work is a neglected line and item in the Defense Department's vast budget. So there you go. You've got more technologies coming into this Dr. Salvatore Pais character. So they're admitting that they have the ability to modify space-time and use it as a weapon. Okay, let's see what this is from. From the National Desk. Trump admin science director says American tech can manipulate time and space. Okay, so this is just another source. Oh, this was from the White House, I forgot. Washington TNND. White House Director of Science and Technology Michael Kreitsios on Monday suggested the United States has technology that can manipulate time and space. The comment came during remarks on the golden age of American innovation at the Endless Frontiers retreat in Austin, Texas. Kretsios said during the event that American technology. Fuck you. Eat a dick. During the event that American technological developments have stalled compared to the 20th century. A gap lies between our moment and the speed of transformation America experienced mid century, he said. Progress has slowed. He continued by explaining a recent stagnation in technological development happened by choice. The nation, he argued, is capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space, Kratios said, and they leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity. Let me just say that again. He said this. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space, and furthermore says, they leave distance annihilated, causing things to grow and improve productivity. There is a flat out admission. I don't care what this article is going to spin. The U.S. is claiming it can time travel. Okay? I can go into delayed choice experiment and how I would debate anybody that's a pop academic that I do absolutely believe are frauds. Gatekeepers, oh, you're going to appeal to authority? Tell me how Einstein could suck my dick. So anyway, they're time traveling people. Don't say it's impossible. It's like superliminal speeds. It's just like saying heavier than air flight's impossible because my academic standard in military says it's impossible. Then the Wright brothers flew. Then Dr. Pais, he created a mad fucking UFO science. Same shit. Kratios did not explain what technology his remarks referred to, though the address went on to mention artificial intelligence, biotech, and semiconductors. And it's not going to be in this video, maybe another one. I can go into like cybernetic super soldiers and like, I think it's called like Agenda 2040 I think 2040 or 2050. The military's strategic plan to create bionic super soldiers by 2050, I do believe. I'll get into that. But yeah. Oh, there's psychic ones too. Ever heard of Project Scan 8, Grow Flame, Sunstreak? They've created psychic super soldiers like X-Men with the V compound or whatever the hell it's called from the boys. I'm sure you can find it in CIA documents. I am tangenting and I apologize. The remarks come as the Trump administration announces several exemptions to allow technology companies to evade its recent tariff blitz. Apple Watches and laptops and semiconductors equipment are among a slew of items exempted from the staggering tariffs on Chinese goods and the base 10% tariffs applied to all of their imports. So this was a big when the big tariff war was happening. The president on Wednesday also released a fact sheet regarding his plan to involve technology in his plan to increase government efficiency. That document cited a presidential memo directing government agencies to make maximum use of technology for infrastructure projects. Okay, I guess that was it for that one. So there's another one. I'm building the case that we are in a timeline war with psychic phenomena included, which if you study Pat Price, Ingo Swann, all the remote viewers and influencers from the CIA and military, their whole thing where they were looking into psychic ESP, extrasensory perception, psychokinesis, the whole voice of the flesh of God mushroom, and Dr. Andrea Vuharic and his society. It's a big thing. But I'm building the case, and I think they've had it for such a long period of time. See, I'm with Richard Dolan that there's a breakaway civilization that's been here for quite some time. I'd say it's before even Roswell. I think that's a deception. I know the Grado Treaty and all that shit. Of course, you got to get into like all the testimony that's recently came out in the last couple, since the last decade, really, about non-human intelligences and identified area phenomena. There's been a lot of admissions about how real it is. You really don't get it if you're a skeptic. Like, there's so much proof. And here's some more. The Diary of Ronald Reagan, the White House. This is from the actual ReaganFoundation.org, so their official website. Excuse me. The White House, Tuesday, June 11th, 1985. Key facts. President Reagan meets with members of the space and scientific communities to discuss the latest developments in space exploration and technology. And see, then it goes on to something else, but see, right there, he admitted that they had some type of technology. And what is it, mind you? Well, let's skip this other horse shit and look what he says. Had a group of Democrats and Republican congressmen in the Roosevelt Room for a session on why they should support the bipartisan bill before the House to give aid to the Nicaraguan freedom fighters. I think we did some good. Lunch was with five top space scientists. It was fascinating. Space truly is the last frontier, and some of the developments therein, astronomy, etc., are like science fiction, except they are real. I learned that our shuttle capacity is such we could orbit 300 people. I just want to read that again. Hold up. Lunch was with five top space scientists. It was fascinating. Space truly is the last frontier, and some of the developments therein, astronomy, etc., are like science fiction, except they are real. I learned from Bubbles that our shuttle capacity is such we could orbit 300 people. Now fuck me, Bubbles. This is a joke. I know, it's a bit raunchy for this, but I have to keep it interesting. Okay, from Vice. U.S. Navy has it. Patents on tech it says will engineer the fabric of reality. And I'm going to go furthermore on this to nail it in that we have this ability to demiurge, which means crafting reality. The U.S. Navy has patents on weird and little. Oh, I already did this. Never mind. Never mind, Jagger. Per Forbes, Heat Ray and the Voice of God. My experience with the non-lethal weapons I eyed for use in DC protest by Mark Kendisian. So look, they had this technology and they're light years ahead of us, and nukes are obsolete. Quantum deconstruction is probably where the big threat is right now. So anyway, during the summer disturbances in Washington, D.C., a top local military police officer asked the D.C. National Guard about deploying two military systems that seemed to come out of science fiction. One active denial systems, ADS, makes the target's skin feel like it's on fire. The other, called the Long Range Acoustic Device, LRAD, directs intense sound in a narrow cone. The sound is so clear and so powerful that it was nicknamed the Voice of God. I encountered both systems, one at Quantico, Virginia, the other in Fallujah, Iraq. Here's what I saw. The ADS is the most dramatic. It looks like a square dish mounted on a heavy truck and directs millimeter waves at targets. The Savannah syndrome for you. This directed energy makes the skin feel like it's on fire. The feeling is so intense that you can't withstand it. Trust me on this, I felt it. That drives targets to move away once out of the direct path of the beam. The effects ends. Here's the video, okay, for those wanting to see the system in action. ADS is technically not a heat ray because it uses millimeter waves. Damn it. There we go. Not infrared waves. That may seem. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, can't take that one down. Okay. That may seem like a minor difference of interest only to physicists, but it is crucially important to the target. Heat rays from the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum leave blistering, i.e., sunburn, that takes days to heal. The millimeter wave effect stops as soon as the target gets out of the way and does not leave a residue injury. The LRAD is a smaller dish mounted on a stand or light vehicle that focuses sound in a narrow cone. The sound is very intense and clear, not like the attenuated sound of a bullhorn. In Iraq, the Marines used the system to warn civilians who are getting too close to the Marine position. The Marines found that civilians sometimes ignored all warnings, flags, flares, warning shots, and got shot. The LRAD produces sound so forceful that it could not be ignored. It got the attention of drivers, even if they were listening to the radio or dealing with screaming kids in the back seat. Okay. Why does the military have these systems? These systems, and many more, come out of an organization located at Quantico, Virginia. and run by the Marine Corps. Originally called the Joint Non Lethal Weapons Directorate, it has been renamed for classic bureaucratic reasons the Intermediate Force Capabilities Office. The military stood this organization up in 1996 in response to the experience in Rosnia and Somalia. Their military forces faced hostile crowds but had few tools to deal with them. The military decided to develop non lethal systems to provide a capability between presence and lethal force. The Marine Corps led the effort because it felt these pressures most accurately, having frequently faced unruly civilians in its overseas deployments. Thus, the organization is headquartered on a Marine Corps base and headed by a Marine colonel. How should people think about these systems? The reporting has been breathless, as if the military were about to shine death rays on peaceful citizens. The exotic nature of the technologies has added to the anxiety. In fact, both systems have been around for a long time and deployed overseas. It's not clear whether ADS was used overseas. ADS has not been used operationally in the United States. LRAD is commercially available, and police departments use it occasionally. Indeed, LRAD has a variety of uses, from scaring wildlife off runaways to alerting boaters about danger. Because the LRAD is like a powerful megaphone, it uses seemingly relative familiar. ADS is different. A novel and exotic capability for which there is no ready analog. People should think of it like a laser, which police departments routinely use. For those fortunate enough to not have met one up close, a quick explanation: a taser fires electrodes into the victims and then hit them with a high voltage that is enough to short circuit the nefarious systems for a short period of time. Victims are incapacitated. Laser or tasers have gained acceptance because they provide an intermediate step between a baton and a bullet. Someone coming after a police officer with a stick, for example, needs to be stopped, but they don't need to be shot. ADS is similar. It uses technology to incapacitate people without hurting them. Excuse me. It's an intermediate force option and important difference. However, it is that tasers are used every day and are hence familiar, while ADS is strange and unfamiliar. Aren't these kind of systems that militarized police? No. Militarization of the police is a real problem, but it's not the issue here. Debates about militarization arise because DoD has a program whereby it provides excess military gear to police departments. Many have criticized the program for encouraging the overuse of force. However, the ADS and LRAD provide the opposite kind of capability. Civilian policing capabilities brought into the military further. ADS would not be available even if police departments wanted it because the system is expensive, complicated, and scarce. So, would it have been appropriate to deploy the systems? And it's important to note that the systems were not used and were not even moved to the area. The DC National Guard does not own them. They would come from the other parts of DoD, likely the Marine base at Quantico. It's also clear that a staff member just asked a question. That's what staff members are supposed to do. It's a long way from asking a question to deploy a capability. The question of usage gets wrapped up in disputes about President Trump's attitude towards the use of force against demonstrators and the fact that many people disagreed with his views. It's a reasonable discussion discussion about what level of violence it requires, what level of response. Wherever the line gets drawn, however, it is better to use a high-tech electronic beam than batons, tear gas, and ultimately firearms. So, looky there, people. Are we insane? Are people who talk about this hearing voices in their heads and this and that, are they really insane? I mean, there's some people who are whacked out, don't get me wrong. But you believe doctors in the mental cleanliness movement. I just want to show quickly. This is a brilliant book by late Jim Mars, an investigative journalist. You know, it's called The $1 Trillion Conspiracy by Jim Mars. And I'm just going to leave this on the screen. I'm not going to read it. But the mental cleanliness movement, mental hygiene, that's where mental health began. The people who were behind the Nazis in the 1920s wanted to create a fifth column with Rockefeller to give you, I have authority, and I'm going to give you poison in the brain instead of alternatives that would work. I'm not a pedophile, but it's the same logic with the pedophiles. Just torment them instead of treating the root cause so children don't get hurt. But hey, we're dealing with Nazis, people. That's about all. Peace has in us. Gun out.